Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is Wednesday, October 4th, 2023. That must mean it's time for another episode of Material Issues, episode number 123 to be exact. I'm Mark Hershberger of Pop Detective Records. I'm sitting here in sunny South Jersey, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I can't say good evening to my co host because I always mess that up. I have to say good afternoon to the gentleman out in Southern California, the president of the International Pop Overthrow Festival, my very good buddy, Mr. David Bash. Good afternoon, David.
Good
How you
evening,
doing,
Mark.
man? Good evening, good afternoon. You gotta love it. Yeah, material issues number 123. It just keeps rolling along. We've got another fantastic guest and show in store for everybody tonight. So, yeah, we're going to have some fun. What's new in your world, David?
Well, IPO wise, the New York and Boston schedules have been done. They've been posted on my the IPO site. There's also been Facebook events put together. I will be doing the Toronto schedule this weekend, so we should have that in order. And then
Nice.
It'll happen in November. So I'm looking forward to all three cities. Health-wise, I got a bit of news. I am pre-diabetic.
Oh, well, you're join the club.
Yeah, see, my hemoglobin sugar numbers finally they went to about 5.9. You
Right.
probably know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
I guess if they go up to about 6.4, that means you're diabetic.
Yeah.
But this is type 2 diabetes, and I find this really interesting that unlike juvenile diabetes, which if you get that, you have it for life. With type 2 diabetes, you can have it and get rid of it.
You can't really get rid of it. You can control it. You're always going to be diabetic, but
Oh,
you
is
can
that right?
control.
Because
Yeah.
there are a
Yeah.
few people. I posted this information on Facebook, and a few people said, "Well, I was, but now I'm not."
Well, when I was diagnosed as diabetic, my blood sugars were up around 9 point something.
Yikes.
And I got it down through weight loss and exercise and diet. I got it down. It was hovering always around 5.9, which was pre-diabetic. So my doc was happy with that. And then the last two blood tests, I have been at 5.5, which is not even in the
That's
pre-diabetic levels. That doesn't mean that I'm cured,
right.
but it means that I am doing the right things to keep it under control.
You clearly
But
are, and that's
yeah,
where my numbers had been. But
yeah.
for whatever reason, this time they were at 5.9. So
So
we'll
it's
see what
ketchup.
happens. I'm going back in to have some tests done, just routine yearly kind of things
Yeah.
to see where I'm at with my heart, and they're going to take some blood again. So we'll see.
Always take medical advice
some
from.
of those people actually know what they're talking about. You can usually tell who does and who doesn't.
Oh man, no more ketchup potato chip videos for us. Okay.
I would not rule out at least every once in a while.
Yeah, that's just it. Moderation in everything,
If
including
I can,
moderation. Yeah.
if I could be moderate in things, I wouldn't be having the problems I have. But
Hey,
moderation is
yeah,
not in my vocabulary.
I know.
Speaking of which, I don't know if you saw my post about the funny meme about watches that
Mm-hmm.
I posted, but I have
Yeah.
a couple of them I want to show today because they came in within the last week,
Oh,
and they're
nice. What'd you
both
get?
kind of apropos to our guest because of their look. This one, this one is very cool. It's called the Bremoire Eastern. I don't know if you can see,
Yep.
but it's got a very, very strong 50s clock look.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's what the watchmaker was going for. It's a micro brand run by one guy who made this watch. It's a lot like those 50s clocks, and it's paying homage to the Eastern Columbia Eastern building in downtown LA.
Oh, cool.
So I kind of
I
like
like
this
that.
look, and I had to go for it. So you got the 50s, which is representative of many of the cards in the book that our guest authored. We'll talk about that in a bit.
Indeed.
The other watch is an homage to 1972. In fact, this may not even be an homage. This may be a direct reproduction. It's a Timex quartz. I think it is a direct repro of their 1972 quartz model, maybe a little bit bigger actually, because this is about 42 millimeters, and I don't think it was back then. But it's got, it's just got a really nice look, and I didn't have a Timex, and it was cheap, so
I'd
go for it. 1972 is 1 year before said book was released, so good chance that when people were reading it back then,
they were wearing one of
actually
those.
wearing that Timex. And I'm going to actually put it on right now.
Very nice.
Because it goes better with my shirt than the Bremoire does.
Well, you know
anyway.
what? You know what? I had a great day yesterday, as everybody watching the Facebook feeds and things saw. It was my daughter's 29th birthday. She came up from
happy birthday, Hannah.
Orlando, and she's up here for some conferences and a wedding. But we went out to eat last night, and we went and saw the world premiere preview show of Elvis.
Oh yeah,
the Musical Revolution. So it was the very first time it was performed in front of a live audience, and it was a blast. 2.5 hours of Elvis music and a nice Broadway show. But the funny thing is, in the last 10 years, every birthday I give my daughter a birthday card with 2 lottery tickets in it. It's an inside joke because
okay.
We've never won. We never won anything ever, and we laugh about it. So before dinner, she opens up the card, takes out a lottery ticket. She's like, "Lottery tickets, Dad, thanks." I said, "Yeah, go ahead, scratch them off. We never win." The first number she scratches off to match is number 29. It was her 29th birthday yesterday. She goes, "Dad, it's an omen." I said, "Yeah, sure." Right? She wins $100 on that first ticket.
Wow.
Which we've never done. She's jumping up and down. Second ticket, she goes, "I'll just scratch this one off quick, get it over with." She wins $100 on both tickets, and they were 2 different tickets, and it just made for a really fun.
I'll scratch this off and get it over with. That's what she said. Yeah.
Well, so it was a great night. Happy birthday to my daughter.
Happy birthday, Hannah, and congratulations. $200 just for scratching. That's
what I said. I said, "Happy birthday, Dad did that." You know that, so
It's funny. Rena, who of course is a brilliant doctorate of physics, and is one of the more logical people you'll know. She plays the lottery all the time. Her attitude is, somebody's got to win. Why not me?
That's right.
All right. I suppose that's true. I can think of several reasons why not you, but if you want to keep spending the money, go ahead.
And it's like the wife that or the husband says to the wife, what would you do if I hit the lottery? She said, "I'd take half and leave you." And
right.
He said, he goes, "Here, I hit the scratch off for $10. Here's $5, and I get out."
Kind of like the record collector one. Just let this song finish, and I'll help you pack. Anyway,
there we go.
We have a really special guest today. He's somebody who's near and dear to both of our hearts because we both owned and still do own this great book that he co-authored, The Great American Baseball Card Flipping, Trading, and Bubblegum book. Looks like we both have different editions of the book. I'm not sure which one was first. Maybe yours. But I seem to recall buying this one when it came out, but that was 50 years ago, so my memory could be completely wrong. In this book, our guest and his co-author, Brendan C. Boyd. Yeah, right. Ketchup flavored chips. That would be better if she was spending money on that. Much better. Anyway. This book is mainly about the author's reminiscences about growing up in the 50s. And if you read the intro of the book, which is fairly long, but very entertaining, it really is more about what was going on in the 50s, what they were watching on TV, the games they were playing, the clothes they wore, just their activities in general. One of the predominant activities, especially for boys back then, was buying baseball cards, buying them at your local superette or drugstore or supermarket or wherever you happen to go, either wax packs or cellophane, and seeing what was inside. And also, many kids, I'm sure you, Mark, certainly me, would always try to accumulate more cards with the cards that we had. And one of the ways you would do that would be flipping.
Yeah.
There were different forms of flipping. I was really good at the sideways flip against the wall. I could flip for distance, and I could make that card hit the wall and just drop. And the game was whoever got closest to the wall would get the other person's card. And I used to just clean up at that game, I have to say. But that was part of what I didn't grow up in the 50s, nor did you, but
Yep.
These activities went on into the 70s, at least, which is one of the reasons, Cot Deal is in the book, yeah, which is one of the reasons why when this book came out in 1973, it resonated with us because we were still doing a lot of that kind of stuff with baseball cards. So anyway, it's a book that's filled with 50s culture and lots of pictures of baseball cards, mainly ones from the 50s and early 60s. And it didn't celebrate the great players as much as it illustrated some of the guys we'd never heard of or second string guys and what was written on the backs of their cards and just other really interesting idiosyncrasies about the players. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and it still is. I'm sure when you reread it, and I do, we're still having fun doing it.
Yep.
And we're very privileged to have one of the co-authors of the book who's still doing lots and lots of things in his life. But this is what he's most known for. And again, we're honored to have as our guest. Would you please give a huge Material Issues welcome to Mr. Fred C. Harris?
And there he is.
Hey, guys.
There he is.
Probably the longest intro you ever got.
Oh, that's a great introduction. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well deserved.
Yeah.
This book means a lot to us.
It sure does. But before we go too much further, let me just say it. I have it all written down right here. Congratulations, Mr. Harris, on the SABR Jefferson Burdick Award, which you just got recently. SABR is the Society for American Baseball Research. And they've done what, maybe, I guess, 5 years now. They've done this Jefferson Burdick Award because he was somebody who had a massive early collection and donated all to the Metropolitan Museum of Art and created the American Card Catalog, which is still in use today. But the award honors individuals who have made significant contributions to the baseball card hobby. And congratulations, Mr. Fred Harris. What a wonderful award. Yeah.
Congratulations, Fred. Well deserved.
Thank you. Yeah, it just came out of left field, if you don't mind.
So to speak.
Yeah, so to speak. But the name that popped out at me as a prior winner was Jim Beckett, who founded the Beckett Baseball Card Magazine, which I don't know whether it still is as important to the hobby as it was back in the, say, 70s or 80s, but that was very important. I had, as I explained to Mark, I had a baseball card store in the late 1980s. I figured I was a little tired of the corporate world and had made a lot of money and figured, oh, what the heck, I might as well try this thing. And it was fun for a while, as long as kids were primarily my customers. It's when the adults started to come in and what's it worth? And that part of it never really appealed to me. But obviously from the book that I wrote, you can see where my passion is as far as baseball cards are concerned.
Right.
But Beckett was there'd be a ragged copy of Beckett on the counter that everybody would look at as they were opening their cards to see what's it worth. Oh, it's worth 25 cents. I'll trade you for this one. Kind of good stuff.
Well, that's awesome.
You remind me a lot of, as you mentioned in your book, of the big mouth Jim Bouton. In that throughout your career, you like Jim Bouton, you've kind of done a whole lot of things, and it's almost like if something struck your fancy, you were going to do it, and you didn't really. It seemed, at least to me, you didn't worry too much about the consequences. It was like, or any responsibilities you might have had. It was like, this is something I want to try, so I'm just going to go for it. Consequences be damned. Would that be accurate?
Well, yeah, it is. It's always been there, sort of, for a period of time when I was in the corporate world, as I'm sure Mark understands. That's a whole different business. If you commit to that, you run a certain route, and I enjoyed that part of it. Where it really started with me was actually back at the time the book became an idea and then a reality. I was in the book business myself, managing a bookstore in Boston called Book Clearinghouse. Long gone, but a wonderful store at the time. And that's where I met my co-author, Brendan Boyd. But to go back a little bit further than that, I had just completed a master's degree in American literature at Penn State. And was going for a doctorate, finished all the coursework, and I was allegedly planning my dissertation. And I was also losing interest in it at that point and not seeing a path forward. I wasn't quite sure I wanted to be a professor, as I had had way too much of life with the professors.
You know what, Fred? I don't mean to interrupt, but you and me both. I was in grad school going towards the doctorate, and after I got my master's, it was like, yeah, I'm done.
And there was so much happening at the time. This would have been 1966, 67, 68, in that time period where, if you think it's turbulent now, it was at least as turbulent back then in a different way. But it was quite a time. So anyway, I took Gail and I moved from Amherst, which is where University of Massachusetts was based, to Boston. We said, let's go to Boston because I don't need to go to courses anymore. I can stay in touch with the school and all that. And I was allegedly studying and working on a dissertation, but I was becoming less and less interested in that, and more interested in the things that were going on at the time, most especially music, but also, the protest against the Vietnam War. All that kind of stuff was very exciting to a person my age at that time.
Oh, yeah.
So I eventually realized I had to get a job. Gail was working at Harvard Divinity School.
Gail being your wife?
Pardon me?
Gail being your wife?
But Gail's my wife, yeah.
Okay.
My wife of 50 years, as a matter of fact.
Well, congratulations.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Boyd Gail Harris had even more of a meaning to you.
Exactly, yeah. You never realized that.
Than in the book, yeah.
I said that was the reason we got married. No, I didn't. But anyway, got an apartment on Beacon Hill. That sounds pretty fancy, but this was the backside of Beacon Hill, and I think our rent was probably $95 a month at that time. Nice apartment and all that. But anyway, I needed to be at a job. We needed more cash, so I started to work at a place called Brigham's, which is a old ice cream place in Boston. And I got pretty good at it after a couple of months, and they sent me from the Beacon Hills Brigham's up to the Prudential Center Brigham's. And so go up there and talk to the manager up there. He has an assistant manager job for you. So I said, oh, okay. So I was walking from Beacon Hill to Prudential Center, went by Book Clearinghouse, and they had a sign in the window that said help wanted. And so I stopped in and took the job. And that's sort of to your point, things present themselves, opportunities present themselves, and they look more interesting than other opportunities that you may be considering. Anyway, started to work at the bookstore, and Brendan, I think at the time, was running the hardcover department, and I was working in the paperback department. But we realized pretty quickly that we had a lot in common. There are certain people in your life that you can not see for 20 years, and all of a sudden you see them again, and you pick up the same conversation.
Oh, God, yeah.
20 years. We had that relationship. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. He's passed.
So
which is unfortunate.
That has been established because
we weren't sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty about it. But one of my good friends, Henry Horenstein, who did a couple of books with Henry's a Boston-based photographer, and he and Brendan did some books together. Brendan wrote the text, and Henry took the photographs. They did a great one on Saratoga, the racetrack, and stuff like that. And Henry confirmed it to me.
Okay.
It's
sorry.
Anyway, Brendan was there, and we just hit it off. And I think I was at the store. We were both at the store for maybe the better part of 2 or 3 years, 2.5 years maybe. And I always liked books, and I liked that work, and I got pretty good at it in terms of the managerial part of it and the financial part of it. And we would take breaks together and we'd start talking about baseball. Everybody talked about baseball. And that's where sort of the themes that run through the book.
Mm-hmm.
We realized we had those in common. And but a book was never on our radar per se.
I was going to say, up to that point, had you written anything prior to this? Had you written anything that was
I wrote
published?
a master's thesis.
So up to this point, you haven't even written anything. You
nothing.
weren't. Okay. Wow.
However, I was writing for myself. In other words, I like writing. I've always been a writer. It's been natural to me. And,
right.
But nothing intentional. Nothing really with a mind toward possibly publishing it or anything like that. But it turned out that our boss at the store, the manager of the store, a fellow named Dick McDonough, had just left. We worked under him for a while, and then he had an opportunity to go to Little Brown, publisher in Boston, and to I forget what his title was there, an editor, I guess. Yeah, he was an editor. And so he had overheard these conversations, and he probably thought in his own mind, well, there's probably something there. But I don't think anything would have happened except that in 1970, I want to say 71, 72, somewhere in there, Sports Illustrated bought Little Brown. Okay. I think Sports Illustrated was part of Warner at that time and whatever the corporate configuration was. But anyway, Little Brown became a Sports Illustrated property. And Sports Illustrated was putting pressure on Little Brown to come up with good sports books, that they could use as properties to, leverage their business.
Right.
And one thing led to another. And Dick said, well, I've got these guys who are writing this baseball card book, and all of a sudden the pressure was on for us to create something, a chapter, something that could be sold. And that's sort of how it happened. It just, with Dick, kind of riding herd on us, we didn't really want to do it. We didn't want the discipline of it, writing's a hard thing to do, but we did it, and they loved it, and they published it in 1973 as a hardcover. You guys were showing off your other edition.
Yeah. Oh God, I don't know that I ever had that.
That's the original one.
Oh, yeah, now I've got to find it on eBay. Okay.
Behind the cover is a nice cloth cover, correct? It's like a nice cloth hardback.
Exactly. Yeah, it's got the dust jacket on it and all that kind of good stuff.
Oh, did I have that? Maybe I did. God, it's 50 years. I don't know.
But it was so expensive. I mean, it was $7.95. That's a lot of money.
Oh no, I had to ask my parents to buy it for me. I mean,
yeah,
I was making 14. So
I was making $1.25 an hour, so $7.95. Was a lot.
Yeah.
But the edition that I think you have, that one of you has, is the what was called a trade paper. Yeah, that one. That was the second. That was the second edition. That was called a trade paperback. It was basically a paperback edition of the same book,
right?
For a slightly different book market. And Mark's edition is called the mass market paperback, and that's a Warner mass market paperback. They came out in 75. And there was one more edition that got published. There's a whole story behind that too. Got published in 1993.
I think I remember this. Okay.
Yeah, that's another story behind that. But but then when the book got published, and all of a sudden we didn't know what to expect. We were gobsmacked that we got such a large advance. For us, we split I think $25,000.
At that time, that was a big deal.
A lot of money, life-changing money.
but getting into how the book even came about. When you and I talked leading up to this appearance on Material Issues, you weren't really a baseball card collector, so to speak. And so when I was talking to David about that in the last week or so, we were like, well, if you wasn't that much of a baseball card collector, how did you find these interesting cards that you wrote about, talked about, alluded to, whatever in the book?
Right.
And it's not so much that, like, as we talk, it's not so much the history of the player or the card. It's the little things that you just said around it, which made the book so wonderful. But how did even the selection of cards come about?
If I were to transport you guys back to the late 1960s, early 1970s, where would you go for baseball cards, especially older baseball cards? There was nothing. There was nothing. There was no eBay. There was no anything really. You could go out and buy packs of new cards, but as far as old cards,
and all of my friends' moms threw out their cards one summer Sunday morning. So like, so yeah, you couldn't even go to your friend,
including mine. I didn't care either. She said, "You don't want these, do you?" When I went off to college, and I said, "No, I don't want them."
Right.
Which is absolutely true, because I never thought about, like, you'd get the new packs, but I never thought about, oh, what about all the packs from 5 or 6 years, or the cards from 5 or 6 years ago? Where do I find them? It didn't even dawn on me at that time to go back and start finding old cards.
No, my mom threatened, my closet was getting cluttered, and I had a lot of older cards. My mom threatened to throw them out, and I said, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, my mom.
I had no regrets. All I was doing, like every other kid, was waiting for the new cards.
Right.
That's all that mattered.
Yeah. So the one mother that didn't throw them out was Brendan's mother. And those are basically his cards.
Okay.
How many? There must have been a hell of a lot more cards and entries that didn't make the book. Oh no, really?
Not a lot.
Didn't have to edit much. Wow.
Nope.
Nice.
We basically wrote a book around the cards, as opposed to writing a book about the cards.
Exactly. Okay.
If that makes any sense.
What was your process? I mean, did you guys write a lot together, or did you write separate? It's kind of like songwriters in a way. Did you guys write separately and bring things to the table?
Yeah. What we did was when we really got down to it, we said, okay, how are we going to do this? And I think Brendan said, well, he was from Boston and he was a Red Sox fan. He said, I'll take the American League. Yeah, and I was originally from Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
A Phillies fan. You take the National League. So that's basically how it's split.
Oh, nice.
And he went through his cards and gave me the National League ones, and he kept the American League card. And eventually we picked off players from each other's stack, and there were players that were special to us. And but that's pretty much how it happened,
And how do you see his style compared to yours? I never thought to even, now I'm going to go back and read it, looking for the differences based upon the league entries. But how do you see yourself differing?
Man, I don't even know. I haven't read the book since I wrote it, to be honest with you.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, I mean, it was a wonderful thing, and I've really been thrilled at the reaction to it over the last 50 years. Talking to people about it and basically listening to them and hearing the things that resonated with me back then, that they, even though they're of a different generation, many of them, that's the thing, if I can get off track a little bit here, that really blows my mind, that people who grew up buying cards as kids in the 70s and in the 80s and even in the 90s, this book resonates with them. Mm-hmm. And that's a marvelous thing as far as I'm concerned. Certainly nothing that we ever intended. We never intended this book to be anything other than an extension of two guys talking about cards and having pressure put on them by their boss.
I wouldn't have expected that to go into the 80s and the 90s, only because at that point card collecting was more of a business, and people were buying stuff not from stores, but from baseball card companies and conventions and things like that.
Yeah, that's actually when I bailed on the business that I had started. I opened my store, I think, in 87 or 88 in Concord, Massachusetts. And by 1992, I was burned out, and it wasn't fun anymore. The kids weren't coming in. I couldn't afford the Upper Deck packs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Very different time. Very different time.
Well, I got to tell you, though, we talk about the writing style, and my daughter's a writer. She's got her master's in writing, and last couple of weeks I was talking about you going to be on the show, and I said, Han, this book was so important to me when I was young, and I read it so many times that it's kind of an irreverent stream of consciousness kind of writing,
right?
And that's the way my writing all developed. And many things that I write, I write this way, and I think it had so much to do. My style had so much to do with reading this book.
Yeah, there's a lot of free association going on in here,
and it really is. And if you would humor me for 1 second, because you haven't read this in a long time, Fred. Early on in the book, this is one of my favorite passages, because this store was right down the street from me. We bought our treasures in little dime stores called spas, corner stores that were never on corners, variety stores completely lacking in variety. They were generally owned by middle-aged men with psoriasis, paunchy citizens with sallow complexions and sour outlooks who wore plaid woolen shirts no matter how hot it was, and little felt hats that had been repeatedly stepped on. I love that passage, but that was the store that I walked one block from my house to get my cards. The guy was a little guy, old guy,
Yep.
with psoriasis, a
Yep.
woolen shirt on in the middle of summer. It was just so perfect, and the whole book is filled with those kind of passages. Which
like
is
your mailman or your Uncle Dwight. That one just cracks me up.
We all had stores like that back then.
Exactly.
We all had stores like that, and I mean that was the one I'm thinking of in particular was very similar to that. Well, we lived in a lot of different places. My mother moved around a lot at the time, and so we lived in a lot of different neighborhoods around Philadelphia. And this one in particular, I can remember it so clearly. I wanted some more baseball cards. And my mother needed a couple packs of L&M cigarettes, so she said, "Go get me." I couldn't have been more than 12 or 13. Here's some money. Go buy me 2 packs of L&Ms and get yourself some baseball cards. Those are the days, man.
The bank was right near it was called Smith's West Side Variety, and that's why that passes with variety stores that didn't have much variety. But my parents would send me down. In those days, you had to take a check to the bank on Friday afternoon to get cash out for the weekend because there were no ATMs. The banks weren't open on Saturday, Sunday.
Yep.
So it'd be my job to run the check down. And it was a small town, so it didn't matter that I wasn't my dad. I had the check, and the tellers were like, "Oh, Mark, you cash a check." But they'd give me the 50 cents then as a reward for doing that to go into Smith's West Side Variety and get my packs.
Yep.
And that the whole way home, I got their cash in my pocket for the weekend for their shopping and everything, and I'm just tearing my packs open, and oh my God, it's just that memory right there.
I mean, when I got the L&Ms, I got a couple of packs of Topps cards. They might have been penny packs. There were penny packs and nickel packs.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God.
And I often couldn't afford more than penny packs. Buy a couple of penny packs, have a couple of cents.
Yeah. By the time I was collecting, nickel was the wax packs were a nickel, the cellophane packs were a dime, and then they had the 3 cellophane packs in one for 30 cents because there were 30 cards. Yeah. I used to buy mine at Dave's Department Store and at Merritt's, which was a big. Dave's Department Store is basically like a drugstore pharmacy now, and Merritt's was a big, kind of department store, and it's
amazing how we remember the details of this stuff.
It's from having no social life.
Somebody posted on our site the other day about opening those packs with the gum in it and the aroma of the cardboard and gum mixture,
which you guys talked about in the book.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was like, that's in the book. It sticks with me today. I can smell something if I'm walking somewhere today.
Oh yeah.
And if I get that kind, I'll be like, oh my God, that's like I'm opening up a fresh pack of baseball cards.
Now,
you drop that gum on the sidewalk and it shatters too.
Oh, if it was older, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. But that's the beauty of this whole book if nobody has read it. As we tried to tell people, it doesn't matter whether you're a baseball fan or a baseball card collector at all. This book is just so well written, and it flows, and it's funny, and it's just great. And that's why all these years later.
Well, what makes it really relatable is that, again, you're not talking about the superstars very often.
Right.
You're talking more about the scrubs who have human foibles and idiosyncrasies. And people who read that, they could relate to it. It was almost like, that's kind of me.
Yeah, you can imagine all these things about these guys, which is exactly what we did. We just riffed on them.
Yeah.
It wasn't a question of going to the internet and finding out what Sibby Sisti was really like. That wasn't what it was.
Right. As you said, you were just riffing on it, which is the best thing. Every card that you're playing with in here, and the things that you talk about, it really has nothing to do with the facts of the player or his stats for the most part. It's just you riffing on the time in the card and the look. Just
as wonderful as it was to get the award from the Sabre folks. I mean, they take baseball so seriously, statistically, to try to get it to yield all kinds of information, which is great. I don't criticize that, but that just was never a part of my interest in the sport or in baseball in general. We didn't talk about the stats.
But look how great how great it must feel that your book has had that much of an impact, not only just on people that you thought it had an impact on it or based on sales that you've known of it, but for a place like Sabre to come out and give you an award as having that much of an impact on baseball card collecting. That's
astonishing.
It's something forever. It's a forever thing that
for sure.
It's always
I wanted to go back to my favorite entry in the book. I'm sorry, Fred, you must not have written this because it was an American League player, but it was so succinct. It was about Yogi Berra, and the cool thing, he didn't write like, well, Yogi Berra was an all-star 12 times or whatever, or Yogi Berra won the MVP 3 times or whatever. All it was his 1958 card with a particularly unflattering picture of him with a caption, "Paul Newman, eat your heart out." That's it. That's what you guys said about Yogi Berra.
And
even the superstars got it.
You know who likes that card? His granddaughter.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I had a chance to meet her at one of the showings of the
movie.
Yogi. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she liked that too.
Yeah.
We're another thing I wanted to ask you, and I'm sure Mark would want to know this too. But how many? After you wrote the book and you got reviews and stuff like that, how many players who were in the book did you hear from? And were some of them happy and were some of them really unhappy?
Yeah, well, I can tell you one for sure. This would have been, I want to say, probably late 70s, early 80s when Jim Bouton wrote his book, his first book, Ball 4, right?
Oh, you mean late 60s, early 70s?
Was it?
Yeah. Ball 4 came out in 1970.
Yeah,
but
he's
written updates though over the years.
Okay, well, this must have been the time frame must have been when one of the updates came out.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm thinking it had to be probably late 70s. I want to say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, by that point, I was in charge of a bookstore chain in Boston called Laureate's, which is long gone, but it was similar to Barnes and Noble, not that big with big, buildings and stuff like that. But and we decided to have Jim Bouton as an in-store guest to sign copies of his book, and the turnout was great. And I introduced myself, and I'm saying to myself, should I really introduce myself to him or not? I decided, what the hell, I'll do it anyway. And he was pissed off. He was still pissed off because if you remember the card, it was Jim Bouton is a big mouth.
Yeah,
that's all we said about it. And, but we talked after a while, and he was okay, but it stuck with him.
Anyone else come to mind?
That was really the only one-on-one thing. We never heard from anybody in that regard.
I wonder if the publishers heard from people because may have been harder to reach. Yeah,
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, after the book came out and I just went on with my life. The book was not as big a part of my life as one might think. It's become much bigger now in the last probably 5 or 10 years. And I started getting more interested in it, I think, maybe about 10 years ago when I started to think, well, there should be a sequel to this. I mean, I've been starting to hear from people that it had an effect on them. We ought to be able to write a sequel. And of course, Brent didn't want anything to do with it at that time. He was long past that. But I did sort of audition a couple of writers who were friends of mine and also writers, and to see if we could come up with something that would be marketable for like a 50th anniversary celebration. nobody was interested. The book business has changed a lot at this point. And none of the publishers were interested. And we did have an agent who tried to sell it. He was a good agent. He tried really hard, but I don't know what people are looking for now in the book business. But it wasn't our book, that's for sure.
Was one of the writers Darren Viola?
No.
He posts on Facebook a lot, and if you've ever read, now I'm not even remembering the name of Jim Carroll's book. Oh, the Basketball Diaries.
Yeah.
Darren writes in that style about a lot of different things, but he's talked about having written or was planning to write a sequel to the Great American Baseball Card. So maybe he was going to do it on his own. I guess if you didn't know him, then that may have been the case, but it didn't come to fruition either, obviously.
Yeah. I try to get the word out there. That was at that time, as a matter of fact, what I did was I figured I ought to get something in print, and so I got a Kindle. I created a Kindle edition of the book, which is still available, but it's nothing like having the actual book in your hand. Very different experience.
No, God no.
Well, I'll have to drop you a private message after this. I've got a great idea for a follow-up book, so I don't want to announce it here on a live show, or we'll have 17,000 people actually writing it. So,
how long did you stay in touch with Brendan? Did you guys remain friends after?
Oh, we did. Yeah, we did. He went on to write a book called Blue Ruin, which was yeah.
Oh wow.
What I think is a really great book. It's gotten mixed reviews, but I thought it was a great book. And he wrote another book he did a couple of books with Henry Horenstein, my photographer friend. The one about Saratoga, a racetrack especially, is really good if you're into horse racing. But we were back and forth. We played touch football together for about 10 years. Every Sunday morning, we had a group of us who played touch football and that kind of stuff. But sort of when I started getting more involved in the corporate world and traveling a lot, we kind of went our different ways. But
what did you do? So tell us about what you did after the book and the corporate world.
Oh, okay. Well, after Laureates, I got good at running that bookstore chain. So a company called Hills Department Stores here in Boston recruited me to become a buyer for them. They were at the time. They were prior to Target. They were Target, on a regional basis, that kind of department store stuff. And I kind of enjoyed the corporate part of it, and got into that whole three-piece suit, travel all the time kind of stuff. And I'm sure Mark knows a lot about that.
Oh yeah. But that has gone by the wayside, anymore. So
it really has.
Casual Friday is now casual every day, and
But I did that, and then after a while, I started working as a consultant for kind of to fix problems in certain companies, and that was great. And that sort of took me through until I want to say the mid 2010, that era. And then I had enough resources to kind of do nothing, which is a nice position to be in.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And at that time, that's when I started thinking about, well, gee, there ought to be a 50th anniversary of this book, of the baseball card book. And it just seemed to make so much sense, but I couldn't make it happen. And that's okay. I have no regrets.
Oh, wait, this is the actual 50th year since the book.
It is, yeah. And I was thinking,
try for 2024 would be acceptable. And I'll tell you, as somebody who collects records and who is in the industry, I mean, a lot of 40th and 50th anniversary box sets of classic albums have come out the year after their 50th anniversary, because sometimes it just takes a while to get things going, to get people on board, and then the process of doing the new edition or whatever it is. Right. So it's not too late.
The sequel was going to follow on from the 50th anniversary edition of the original book. I mean, we got connected to all kinds of major editors in New York and stuff like that. And just I don't understand the book business now. I thought I did understand it 50 years ago. I don't understand it now at all. But
have you thought about using a smaller, a boutique publisher or self?
Yeah, we even tried University of Nebraska. They're pretty good about sports books. They have a nice reputation. They weren't interested either, and it just didn't happen, and that's okay. I'm all right with that. I'm not on a passionate mission to get the book back in print.
No, well, if I do my thing, I'm going to have you write the foreword for me, and
Great.
make it happen. But back to the book though. 1 second. How long after it was released did you really know like something was happening? And what did the publishers want you to do? Did you actually go on any kind of book signing or marketing tours at all, or did you just kind of sit back and go, wow?
Well, at that time, I was getting more and more involved in the business world, so I didn't really have the flexibility to travel. But Brendan did, and he did a lot of. He went on the road a lot in that period of time after the first book came out, the original edition came out, I don't. There were book signings weren't really a thing back then. That wasn't a marketing thing, but advertising was the big deal, and because we had Sports Illustrated behind us, we got good placement and a lot of promotion.
Yeah.
And that was no small reason why the book was as successful commercially as
that's how I found out about it.
Yeah,
one of those ads. So
exactly. I mean, so that that kind of played itself out through the mid '70s, I guess, and then when the edition in the '90s came out, then I did travel. I had some flexibility to travel, and I did a couple of the two major things I did that were really pretty exciting to me was I was on with Larry King. He loved it, and that was he was a really sweet guy too. It was nice to interact with him. And then I was on with David Letterman one night.
Yeah,
it was really cool. The coolest, and you'll appreciate this, especially David always had a musical guest, well, frequently had musical guests, but he had a studio band, Paul Schaefer's band.
Right.
And man, they were good. They were tight. But that night, it just happened the night that I was on the show, the musical guest was Booker T and the MGs.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
And, you sit there on your television, you watch the show, and they break for commercial and all these kinds of things. All those breaks, Booker T and MGs played in the studio, and it was great.
Sure.
Absolutely.
But did David really did he really like the book, or was that something that his publicity people said, you know what, let's get this guy on?
I think it was pretty much the latter. I'm not sure he actually read the book, although he did. I think it did resonate with him a little bit, but I don't think it was a labor of love for him.
I would have thought that it would have resonated well with him though, just because the sense of humor. That the book is very much his type of humor.
It was real easy to talk to him, and
I have to say something, Fred, and you may or may not have heard this. So let me know if I'm crazy. To me, you look and sound almost exactly like Joe Biden.
Is that right?
Not as sleepy as him, of course. I was almost gonna ask you if you would say, "Would you shut up, man?"
Well, that may happen.
I won't.
Who knows?
I won't. No one's ever told you that?
Never.
Oh my God! Maybe I am crazy.
Must be the camera. No, it's the camera angle. It's the camera angle.
Maybe, but even vocally, I hear it.
No, I do. I see the resemblance. Yeah, you see it a little bit.
Well, I take that as a compliment.
Maybe, there we go.
And I meant it as such. So maybe that's, we need somebody to run against Trump in 2024. So might as well be you.
Amen. I don't think I'm up for that.
With the book, Fred, were there any licensing issues whatsoever with the images and cards and such, or how did that work at the time?
If there was, it was taken care of in-house by the publisher. It didn't show up on our radar screens. We didn't really once we provided the publisher with as much as the publisher needed. We were really not that involved with the production of the book or the editing of it. And we were probably naive enough not to insist on having final approval and all that kind of stuff. and I don't even know who at Little Brown was the editor in charge of that property at the time, but whoever he or she was, they were in sync with us because they put together graphically a really nice product. That thing is fun to look at and to read, you know.
It probably wasn't that big a deal at the time. And in fact, Topps may have seen that as an opportunity for them. It's way different now. Now it's like it's like you need to pay us for everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And that may be one of the reasons why these publishers don't want to go for it, because they can already see, like, how am I going to license these cards?
Yeah.
It's going to be a freaking headache, and they're going to charge me thousands of dollars, and it won't be worth it.
Well, I mean, for me, one of the best parts of the book, even though I didn't make the trip to New York, was the time that Brendan spent with Cy Berger.
Yeah.
Back then, and you know, they were fine with that. I'm sure Cy, whatever Cy said, went with Topps. You know, he was sort of the big guy there, and so I think they saw it as a positive.
Yeah, of course. That's how everybody saw it back then. It's publicity, not like, well, let's just rape these
right.
publishers of all the money we can,
right.
so that they have the privilege of using our it's like, wow, it's amazing how much of a 180 things have made in that particular endeavor. But wow.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was, I go back to that period in the late 80s, early 90s. I don't know what you guys were doing as far as cards were concerned, but it stopped being fun. I mean, you know, stuff really blew up, and it became a huge business opportunity, and people started getting involved with it in the companies that were more interested. They were more interested in making a buck than anything else.
No, it's terrible, Fred. I mean, I used to go to, that's when I was collecting minor league cards. So I used to go to the conventions all the time, and you would see kids. I mean, you'd see 10, 11-year-old kids taking out their whatever measuring device it was to make sure a card was being centered. This was in 1988, and you've got kids doing that. And then you've got, as you mentioned, corporates coming in and just buying stacks of particular rookies because they thought that they would break and they'd make money. It was no longer a hobby. It was 100% a business to everybody who was there. And you're right. I lost my passion for it at that point.
It was not fun.
Yeah. Indeed. I mean, I think the only interest that I personally have in cards nowadays is, David and I have done it. There's some people out there that do card breaks and set breaks and things, and we get in on these little fun drawings and whatnot. And I was lucky to get this Mini Minoso card. But again, there's the business of it. It's a PSA graded, sealed plastic thing, and that now is like a little silver gold bar or something. What will this appreciate in, because it's protected, and it's
the whole grading thing is such a racket. I'll never send anything in to be graded.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story. A couple of years ago, I was down at Patriot Place down in Foxborough, which is the craft shopping mall adjacent to the stadium, and there's all kinds of stores there. And there was a card store that opened up, but it wasn't a card store like you're probably thinking. This thing looked like Tiffany's. I mean, they had chrome and glass and all kinds of stuff. And adult men were in there bargaining with these people. And I happened, at the time, I was interested in Formula One cards. I kind of got interested in the Formula One racing, and Topps had done a very expensive set. And I said, "Do you have Formula One cards?" And he said, "Yeah, here's some." And there were like $1,000 for a Michael Schumacher or something like that. And I said, "Do you have any commons?" Just off the top of my head. And he went, "Oh, yeah, over there, and go look at them." So I've gone through, and wow, these are great. They're only like 50 cents, $1 each. So I bought a whole bunch of them, and I still take them out and look at them,
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I would tell David, when I was a kid, back in the early to mid 70s, my mom, we had a farmer's market out by town, a little north of Philadelphia here. And I'd go with her because that's where she bought her meats and cheeses and things for the week. But they also had the antique market indoors, which back then they were antiques. They weren't collectibles. Nothing that anybody sold was a collectible. It was just old stuff, But because I read, books about baseball and early baseball, I would recognize the T206, 207, the T10s, the triple fold. I would recognize these things in these antique old stuff dealers, little glass cases, and I was buying them up left and right for 50 cents a piece. But back then, 50 cents for a kid, where 50 cents bought a couple of packs, was a big deal, or $1
Right.
for a T206 card. And that's where I got them all because nothing was collectible at that time.
Right.
It was just old stuff.
In the mid 70s, and it's because of your book that I got into actual card collecting, buying old cards after the fact. In the mid 70s, I lived in a town called New City, New York, Rockland County, right on the border of New Jersey. And right across the border was Montvale, New Jersey. And in Montvale, there was a place called the Antique Mall, which had, the kind of stores Mark was talking about. But among the stores was a place called Sports Corner, which was a baseball collector shop. And when I went in there, I was in such heaven. I mean, I was literally a kid in a candy store. And that's where I first started buying stuff. But it was a lot cheaper than it is now. I mean, you could get a really nice condition, let's say Babe Ruth 1934 Gaudy card for $30.
Yeah,
that was the most expensive thing.
Yeah,
something. Even some of the better players in your book, like a 58 Yogi Berra, for example, maybe $1.
Yeah.
They weren't quite that collectible, but they were starting to be. And actually, I went into that store. You'll like this. I went into that store one day, and I had told the one of the owners about the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I come in, and he said, "You know who just called me? Spook Jacobs." And I'll bet you he called to see if he could get the card that was in the book. And I'll bet you a lot of players who you. Yeah. But I mean, you mentioned this. You talk a lot about the scrubs, but I'm sure a lot of them were very happy. It's like, I thought we've forgotten. Like nobody remembered us, and here we are in this book. We've got something we can show our friends, and let's see if we can find the old card. I bet you had a profound effect on a lot of these players' lives that you.
I'm sure. I never thought about that way, but you're right.
Oh, no doubt. I mean,
because they sure didn't make much money back in the day.
No, not at all. And speaking of the book, we can't send really people to Amazon or whatnot to buy it. It's kind of not available, I don't think, anywhere except out on eBay for the used copies of things.
Exactly. The only thing that's available is the Kindle edition.
The Kindle edition, yeah. So if people use Kindle, look at Amazon, the Kindle edition, and buy it there. But outside of that, a couple of different. I've seen a couple of them on eBay. Right. Most of them are in pretty bad shape because, like me, everybody read it 1,000 times and hung on to it. So, if you like what you heard here tonight, and believe me, you'll love the book whether you're a baseball card or baseball fan at all, because it's so well written.
Yeah, I don't think we can
run to eBay and get it.
I'm sure most of our listeners are more in the music oriented. Sammy Esposito, exactly. One of the best lines in the book. Sammy see again, you were talking about the fact that whoever wrote, like Cy Berger or whoever was writing the copy on the back of the cards, what are they going to say about players who weren't any good?
Not easy.
And Sammy Esposito was like one of the prime examples of that. Nevertheless, I bet if he found out that he was in that book, I bet he was really happy about it.
Oh yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. Never thought about it that way, but you're absolutely right. Yeah.
It's great. Well, I mean, I hope somehow the wave of things changes and you could do a 50th anniversary or
I think it's the card rights. I've got to believe that that's the reason publishers aren't going to want to do it.
Yeah, you might be right.
Yeah,
it's going to be proherently expensive.
Yeah, we see. As hard as we tried with the 2 or 3 writers that I work with, trying to work up a sequel, it's difficult now to recreate that tone. It's kind of hard to explain, but to to do the riffing on the cards.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
but,
it's it very much was perfect of its time and place,
Right,
and
right.
and of who you were and who Brendan was. And yeah, as with a lot of bands that get together and we interview them, and we're like, how did you make this happen? We were just hanging out in the basement and we decided to do this, and then we made a demo tape, and they could walk into a major label back in the 60s and hand them the tape. And the major label was like, oh, you know what? We really like this. We're going to sign you and put it out. And so we asked them, they're like, that's kind of how it happened. And then after that, we don't know what the heck happened, you know?
And then they would get produced by the studio, and
exactly.
In many cases, yes, absolutely.
It wasn't really until the late 60s, early 70s that the groups wanted to produce their own stuff and
right.
own it and take ownership of it.
Yep.
But even then, they had no idea what it meant. I mean, to retain your publishing, for example, was something that most bands had no idea about. Yeah. And naturally, the labels and the writers and everybody else, they were purely happy. They were surely happy about that. Like, we don't want them to know anything.
And we run into that too, trying to take releases that have never been released on CD since vinyl days.
Mark also runs a label, so he's gone through that.
Yeah, it's tough. You know, you talk to major labels about a band that maybe sold 8,000 copies of their debut album, never heard from them again, and you're like, can I just license this and put it out like 40 years later, 45 years later? And, oh yeah, here's the price tag.
Yeah,
if it's owned by a big label like Sony, they won't. I mean, they'll say, all right, if you want to pay us $100,000, we'll get our attorney to write up a contract. Otherwise, it's a waste of our time. That's what they'll tell people. And it's so it's just so soulless, but that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
In many cases.
Yeah. But fingers crossed, we'd love to see a reboot of this book. Even a brand new pressing would be great of the original.
I'm going on eBay to try and find a hardcover. That's all I can.
They're out there.
They're out there. Yeah, they are out there. But Fred, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Again, as you can tell, David and I are lifelong fans of the book, and now getting to know you, we are lifelong fans of Mr. Fred Harris.
Yeah, and for better or worse, whatever people might think about social media, without it, we could never be doing this, because we were able to get a hold of you this way. And I mean, even when the book came out, I remember thinking I would love to talk to these guys. But I was only 14 or 15, so I didn't know what to do. But it was like, how do I get a hold of them? I remember you said something about, like, if you, I forgot which entry it was, but if you have any dispute with this, get a hold of us through the publisher. And it's like, I don't want to do that. I want Fred's address. I want to write to him. How was I going to get that?
If we had been able to make contact, we would have hit it off too.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been just about the cards. It would have been about the culture and the music and everything else that was going on.
I'm not sure how eloquent I would have been at 15, but I've tried.
Good.
Well, it's been a babbling idiot. But.
It's been absolutely fascinating, though, Fred. And
thank you.
We wish you the best. Thank you again for doing this.
Yes.
Health and happiness, and we'll stay in touch if we can figure out how to make a reboot happen, because it would really it would mean a lot to us, and your book has meant a lot.
There might be a workaround somehow, but
we'll think
I'm
about
not savvy enough to
do it right now. But have a great night, Fred. Be good. We appreciate it. Material Issues, Mr. Fred Harris, the Great American Baseball Card Flipping Trading Bubblegum Book. Yeah, hold that up one more time. There it is. Fantastic. Great job, my friend. Great job.
Thanks. You, Fred.
Have a great night, Fred.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it, Mr. David Bash. I mean, that was one of my favorites.
It was a lot of fun, and it was concise, even though we could have, as we talked about earlier, when we were, before the show started, we were off camera, we were getting into all kinds of tangents. Fred is a very well-rounded person. He knows a lot about a lot of things, and we could have talked about all kinds of stuff for a long time, but this one was, this is like the normal length that we had anticipated when we started the show. Not the I mean, when we started the podcast, not the 2 hours that we sometimes go.
Well, I found it to be I just found it to be so very fascinating, as many of our interviews and shows go, because they are and forgive me, Mr. John Borak, but they are iconic people in our time, in
our world,
our world, our youth,
But that when we use the word iconic, we're not just using it in a general sense. We're using it in the sense in our particular little world of pop music or of baseball card book writing or whatever. These people are iconic to us, or we wouldn't have them on in most cases. Right. That's how we feel about them.
Yeah, no, indeed, and that's what just makes an episode like this, and like many of our episodes, very very special.
Yes.
For you and I, we don't talk about the
listening.
Well, and we don't talk about the people that listen and watch in the archives as fans of the show. We talk about as friends of everything that we do. So our friends going through the same thing that you and I are going through in our minds with the guests that we have. So just great opportunities to do this kind of thing, and I love it. I love it. What a really nice man, Mr. Fred Harris.
He really is.
What a great
man,
book.
Do I see that Biden thing, both visually and verbally. I mean, I don't know why, but it really.
That's awesome. It's awesome. Well, let's talk about what we got coming up here, man. We got a couple of things going on.
In the next few weeks, we have a guest who decidedly does not look like Joe Biden, but is very iconic in his own right. He was the editor and publisher of one of the most iconic, that's right, pop music fanzines to ever be released, and that would be Trouser Press.
Yep.
And I mean, a lot of us. John Borak, anti-iconic John Borak included, we looked to Trouser Press to inform us about very obscure bands, artists, and to shape our taste. Yes. And that magazine certainly did a very good job of it. And that, and after and while the magazine was still going, this man wrote the Trouser Press Record Guide, which I'm sure all of us have had at least one edition of that. And through which I learned a lot about bands. You go through, you're a collector, you think, I know all about these things. And then you read this like, what? Who are they? And it was very, very well written, every edition. And he's yeah, there you go. She sure is. And he's still active. He's still writing stuff. He's still publishing stuff. And we're very glad to have Mr. Ira Robbins on Material Issues a week from today.
Very good. Ira Robbins. That's 1 week from today. And
the
week after
18th,
that.
We don't have a guest on the 18th, and that'll be fine with us. If we don't get one, I've got lots of new releases to talk about, and I'm sure Mark has stuff to talk about.
Yep,
and then
maybe we'll do a Stump the Bash for the 18th, and
or we can bring John Borak on, and we can do 1978 and see if he can redeem himself.
Yeah, we'll write 19.
He can. I think he would. I think he'd wipe the floor with me that year, but we'll see. I want to know. On the well, he is the only player born in San Remo, Italy, and lived in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, who couldn't hit. So he's iconic on that level. Yeah. Is Reno still around?
I don't know.
Probably. I mean, he might be, but yeah. I mean,
did you want to have him on the show on the 18th?
Book have been gone for a long time.
Did you want to have him on the show on the 18th?
Yeah, right. Let's get Spook Jacobs on. Or no, Whammy Douglas passed away, according to John. So I guess we can't get him.
Can I go back to your Yogi Berra statement from the book?
Yeah.
I just opened the book up to a random page.
And there he is.
And there it is. And a cartoon of chocolate yoo-hoo to this little round man whose feet almost touch the floor. Lawrence Peter Berra, on his lack of an offensive philosophy, there ain't nobody that can hit and think at the same time.
Yeah. One of those lines.
Then, of course, your line, this is my favorite picture of Yogi. Paul Newman, eat your heart out.
That's just that's that.
Oh,
is great stuff.
Reno died in 2011.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of these guys are gone.
Yeah.
I cannot name anyone else who had those particular attributes about them. So no. Anyway, the following, so 18th, we don't have a guest at present. We may not. On the 25th or /26th, because on this particular guest time, it will be the 26th in Perth, Australia, where he lives, is somebody who John Borak might consider iconic in the power pop world. He was the main man of the Stems. He was not the main man of the Some Loves, but he certainly did contribute quite a bit to it, and was by all means the main man of DM3, which is well, it depends. If you're more in the garage world, you might say the Stems were the one that was the best. If you're in the power pop world, you would say DM3. But his style pervaded every band that he was in. We're talking about Mr. Dom Mariani.
That's gonna be good. Yeah. And I'll be broadcasting from Epcot again that week. So I'll be down in some little corner alleyway with my cell phone.
There you go.
So it'd be fun.
That one will be a couple of hours later than usual to accommodate the time in Australia. But we'll be there you go. We'll be posting about that. We'll be keeping everybody updated. But that's what we have so far. Definite irons in the fire as always. And,
oh yeah.
And Mark is being purposefully blurry here. Purposefully blurry.
There we go. Now I'm back. I was back. I just had my blood sugars were raising a little bit there. That's what happened.
Kind of like mine, yeah. Got to get it down from 5.9. That is not a great place to be, but
I know. One thing I forgot to tell you. Remember, I'd mentioned when we did the set break. We got that. Well, they just did the 1955.
And did you take part?
So, I got one. I did not get the Roberto Clemente rookie, which I was hoping for.
Yeah,
I did get a Pittsburgh Pirate. I didn't get a Hall of Famer, but here's the card that I did get.
Bob Friend. Oh no, Jerry Lynch.
Jerry Lynch.
That looks good. Is that the actual card you got?
No, that's not the actual card. I just pulled that picture down so we could see it. But
Jerry Lynch, a great pinch hitter. Especially for the 61 Reds in the World Series. He was, not that they didn't win, but
or
what was the name of it? Cubby O'Brien, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Since Ernie looked. So if we can't get Ernie, maybe we can get Cubby.
But evidently he's going to be announcing another like he hasn't said what it is yet, but a big time card break. So I'm thinking it might be.
Oh.
I don't know what it might be, a Bowman set or something different.
Keep me posted because I think I want to take part in another time.
It's always fun. But yeah, I'll be down in Florida for the Dom Mariani show. We'll be live from Epcot with my daughters. And as you said, we've always got irons in the fire. I've got a couple of things going on that might be interesting. So we'll see what happens. So you got to stay tuned here, Material Issues, and join the Facebook group. Subscribe over at YouTube, materialissues.com. Tell your friends, and be here every week because we have a blast with it.
Absolutely. It's always been fun.
Indeed.
And if it wasn't fun, we kind of made it fun, like with the Dwight interview. But
exactly.
Not our Uncle Dwight, but Dwight Twilley.
It always ends up fun one way or another. That's what it is.
We love you, Dwight, but that one didn't go so great. Anyway, everyone have a great rest of your day /night /week, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Have a great night. Cheers. Good night.